Hi, and welcome back. My name is Annie Shoemaker. I'm back. You already know Megan. I've been working in the anti-trafficking field for the last 12 years and am now one of the therapists with foster care who's working with our kids. So we're going to jump in today and talk to you specifically about human trafficking and exploitation and some of the risks involved with that. So we're going to talk through online enticement and sextortion. We're going to talk through online grooming, runaways, meetups and abductions, human trafficking, and then sugar babies and sugar daddies. So online exploitation is when a child is or an individual is communicating with somebody that believes that they're a child with the intent to commit a sexual offense or abduction. So this includes anything from online conversations, buying and selling of images, sextortion, and sextortion is where the kids are actually blackmailed or threatened, saying, I will sell your images, your usually nude or sexual images online if you tell anybody. And we've seen from the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children that there's been a huge increase, actually 323% increase just from 2021 to 2023 of online enticement reports. So it's just skyrocketing as people are moving online. And actually, surprisingly, teenage boys are the most common targets in most of the recent cases. And so that goes against a lot of times what we think of with the girls. So online exploitation can be through the form of instant messaging. It can be on email, text messaging. We a lot of times see it on gaming platforms, bulletin boards, chat messaging, even child chat rooms. And the whole purpose of this is communicating with the child to build trust for then the purpose of grooming them. And we'll get into what that looks like. So a lot of times we get questions of how often does this happen and where does it happen? So some statistics, and you can look at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. We're getting a lot of our information from them. But 1 in 5 children ages 10 to 17 just this year received a sexual solicitation over the internet. And we know that 88% of child sextortion cases, the perpetrator initiated contact through either Instagram or Snapchat. So again, apps that a lot of times we have on our phones. We also see a skyrocketing that happened in 2020 with online recruitment going up 22%, and 125% increase of those cases happened through Facebook. And then a 95% increase in reports of recruitment happened over Instagram. So again, platforms that people are common and familiar with, but these are ones that we need to be aware of. And that information comes from Polaris, where they're tracking those statistics.
And the 2020 probably has to do with COVID.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, like Annie said, a lot of this online enticement is leading up for grooming. So grooming is when someone builds relationship, trust, emotional connection with a minor to manipulate, exploit, or abuse them. So this grooming can lead to sexual abuse, sexual exploitation, or sometimes human trafficking. The NSPCC, which is the National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children, found that online grooming has increased over 80% in the past 6 years. So we used to hear a lot about stranger danger, not getting in the white van, all of this stuff. But now things are moving online, and that's where a lot of this grooming is happening. So with that, we are beginning to learn the way that this plays out online. And so one of those is this 3 T's of grooming: target, tricking, and trapping. And so we will walk through those 3 T's with you. But first, we just want to kind of change your image of what a groomer looks like. A lot of the times we have in our heads that it's this creepy older guy. And granted, it very well could be. But if we just have this one image in our head, we're missing a lot. The groomer could be male or female. It could be someone in a position of authority, police officer, teacher, coach. It could be someone significantly older. It could be someone not significantly older. So we've actually worked with a family who this preteen boy was being groomed by a woman in her early 20s. So not who you would have in your head as a groomer. And so it made the family miss it for a while. And so we want you to kind of throw away the image that you have in your head. So like I said, the first step is going to be targeting. So the groomer initiates conversation online with the child with common interests. Like Annie said, this could be through social media, online gaming, dating apps, and it's usually through direct messaging. And they find things that they like together. Oh, you're into this. I'm really into this too. Um, AI has also come up with a new thing, GPT, an AI voice changer, where you can type in something and then make it sound the way that the kids talk nowadays,
Yep.
to use the slang. And so the groomers can sound like they're really young with that as well. And so that helps them, part two, gain trust.
Yep.
So they ask inviting questions. They compliment these kids. They ask about their day, schools, teachers, parents. I really care about you. I want to know you, and just insert themselves into their lives. And sometimes they can even increase this affection through gifts and rewards. So maybe if they're gaming together online, they'll send them money to be able to go up to the next level in the game or whatever it might look like to continue to earn that trust. So once they've earned your trust, the next step is going to be tricking. And so they can start sexualizing the relationship. They're going to ask more sexual questions. Do you like to kiss? Do you ever masturbate or touch yourself? They may ask for some sexually explicit pictures. They might introduce pornography to the child and send them some links to watch. And then from there, a lot of times they will begin to try to move this offline. So they'll ask for phone numbers to text or call, and then also talk about maybe meeting up somewhere. And then by this point, the kids a lot of times feel trapped. And they sometimes have done stuff that they don't want the parents to know about. Maybe they sent a picture that was requested of them. Maybe they saw porn, so the groomer showed them some porn and they feel really guilty about it. And so they feel trapped and stuck in the situation. And so at this point, the groomer just has to maintain control. So they are, continuing that relationship, but also continuing the threats. You need to send me more, or I'm going to release what you have sent me, or I'm going to tell your parents what you have sent me. That sextortion that Annie was talking about earlier.
So some of the things we want you to learn as parents and caregivers is, what do I watch for? How do I know if this is happening? Because again, the groomer is so good at just increasing shame and secrecy and isolation. And so what we're watching for with kids is, are they having increased time online? And again, this is a lot of kids that we hear. We understand that this is not just a trafficking situation, but are you seeing more odd hours where they're online at night when they should be sleeping? Are they very secretive about their time online? So when you talk to them about how much screen time they have, are they avoiding the conversation or lying about how much time they're online, or lying about when they are online, trying to hide that? Do you notice when you come into the room, are they switching the screen out? Are they closing tabs or windows on their phone, or hiding the history of their phone, their device that they're on? So again, just noticing for those, they're on edge, right? They're trying to hide something. But also listening to how do they talk. Is their language more mature than their average age that they should be at? Especially when they're gaming, how are they talking to the quote-unquote friends that they're communicating with? Are there things on there that shouldn't be, that are inappropriate for their age? And then do you just see a spike in their emotions, the anger, the depression, the defensiveness, even an increase in suicidal ideations, especially when it's regarding to screen time? So anytime you try to put restrictions on it, how are they responding to that? And does it just seem, again, we understand that some emotional response to losing a movie or losing screen time is normal, but does it seem excessive, knowing your child and what they're normally responding to? So we also know that, as Megan had mentioned, some of this then is they're going to try to then meet them up in person. And so when they're starting to talk about, I want to meet you in person, they're going to start to talk to them about running away. And so being mindful of any language, any conversation about trying to run, wanting to run, because that's a higher risk when they've been groomed. Because they're shameful, they're secretive, but also they want to be with this person. They genuinely believe that this person loves them, this person is good, they care about them. They believe they have a close connection, so this is no longer a stranger. This is now, oh, no, I know this person. This person knows my family. This person goes to my school. This person lives in our community. We're friends. And this can lead to abductions. And although abductions are a minority of cases of trafficking in the U.S., we do know that it happens when they meet in person and then move online or move offline. So trafficking, what we're working with in our agency, this is when we're looking at the recruiting, harboring, transporting, providing, or even obtaining of a person for sex or labor. The online stuff is mostly through the sex industry, but it's usually through the use of force, fraud, or coercion. So again, they can be any person along that route of trafficking that's just luring them in, engaging them, and then controlling them. So some stats that we see specifically regarding human trafficking, this comes from the International Labor Organization, it comes from the Office of the Attorney General, and then also United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund. So some of the stats that we're seeing worldwide, there are more than 49 million people enslaved today, and that's more than even when slavery was legal. And so it's just, we're seeing an increase, and this has gone up even since we started the work 12 years ago. We also know that 80% of survivors of trafficking are female, and more than 25% of those survivors are minors. And so, again, it's starting when they're young, and then they're moving in. We also know that it's a highly lucrative business. We've heard stats that they actually bring in more than Starbucks on an annual basis, and so they're reported as $150 billion. And so a lot of times people say, why would somebody do something like that? It's greed and power. And so when you can come into that kind of money, we see that they're moving industries like weapons trafficking, drug trafficking are moving into human trafficking because it's more lucrative. You can make more money off of it because you can sell a person multiple times versus selling a drug or a weapon once. And so that's why it's now the second criminal industry, second only to drug trafficking, and they're using the same routes to traffic people. So in the U.S., some of the stats that we see with trafficking, a lot of times we hear from people, it's international individuals coming into our country who have been trafficked, and it's actually the opposite. We do see some of that, but our highest number of trafficking survivors in the U.S. are minors, who are 200,000 individuals. These are minors born in the U.S. who are trafficked into the sex industry each year. And so these are our own kids who are born and raised here and are being trafficked by Americans. And so we just need to see it through a different lens, as it may look different than you've expected. We know that in the U.S., the average entry age into the sex industry is 12 years old. So again, they're going younger and younger. And we know that the average lifespan, according to Info at Freedom, is 7 years that a survivor of trafficking will make it. And we see this in our work. By the time they arrive with us, so many stories of near death or should have died because of suicide, homicide, the amount of beatings, just the life that they live is horrific. And so it's a shortened lifespan for sure. And then we know that according to the National Incidence Studies of Missing and Abduction, Runaway and Thrown-Away Children, that 1 in 3 children who run from home will be approached by a trafficker within 48 hours. And so, again, they're watching online, they're being aware of what the kids are saying and how frustrated they are, and they're watching for them to run, and then they'll approach them at wherever location that they land at. So we also want to bring you some stats closer to home. And so when we're looking at human trafficking in the state of Wisconsin, we have some pretty high numbers that are surprising. And according to the Medical College of Wisconsin Institute for Health and Equity, they've brought us some of these stats, which is phenomenal. We often say we just can't get enough statistics and understanding of what's happening. But they have learned that human trafficking just this year, and so this is just the first 6 months of this year, has increased by 43% compared to 22 and 23. And so this is a huge skyrocketing, and we're not sure why at this point, but this is very concerning how high it's already increased at the beginning of the year. They've also told us that Wisconsin is ranked 6th in the nation for human trafficking, and Milwaukee is a hot spot. Again, not the typical place, not the typical state that you would expect to see such high numbers of trafficking But between the years of 2013 and 2016, a human trafficking victim aged 25 or younger was found every 4 days in Milwaukee. This is just shocking to me, and this is part of why we do what we do, because there's so many survivors that are found. But we also know, and we've learned just over our years of doing this work, as well as from other research, that so many survivors never do come forward. They don't ever make a report. Nobody's reported. And so this is due to a lack of understanding. So oftentimes, even by the time they get to us, they don't even know that they're a survivor of trafficking. They kind of argue with us that first year of like, I don't really need to be here because it was my fault. I got into this on my own. And so not understanding that what happened to them is a crime. They also don't feel like they have enough resources. They've been threatened by the trafficker, and also just the intense feeling of shame of nobody would ever love me, nobody would ever want to help me. And they've been told this by the traffickers, by society, by even service providers. They've been told they're not believed, or they're crazy, or they're making this up. And so again, we know that those numbers, both in Wisconsin but also nationally, would be much higher if we knew how many go unreported. A more recent report that came out in 2020, specifically looking at sex trafficking in Wisconsin, shows that 97% of survivors are female and 65% are Black. And we know that a majority of the trafficking that happened in Wisconsin happened within 6 zip codes, with 53206 as one of the worst. We know that Black and Hispanic neighborhoods have a higher incidence of trafficked residents within Wisconsin borders. And we also know that because of the proximity to the airport and I-94, the zip code 53207 had a huge cluster of cases where trafficked victims were actually moved away. So a lot of times trafficking happens within the community nearby, but specifically in that zip code, they were near the airport and were actually able to move them out of the state. And so that's something else to be aware of. And then we'll bring this down even more into the city of Milwaukee. This shows you a map. So if you can find on your map your zip code where you're at, according to the 2020 Milwaukee Juveniles and Young Adults Sex Trafficking Report, this will show you how each community, how each zip code ranks as far as the trafficking cases that were reported. So we'll give you some time to look at that. But just to be aware of what does it look like in our neighborhood, what does it look like in nearby neighborhoods, and helping to have the conversation of why there's such discrepancies.
So some of this last types of dangerous online behaviors that we want to look at is going to be through some transactional sites. And so one of these is going to be sugar dating. So this is when wealthy individuals, or sugar daddies, pay for a relationship with a less than wealthy individual, or a sugar baby. A lot of times this is pushed as empowering and harmless and fun and a great way to make some money, just to be in a relationship with these older guys. But in reality, it's human trafficking, because it's someone who has power and control exploiting someone who doesn't. Rarely do these sugar daddies just want companionship. Most often there's an eventual expectation of sex. And sugar dating is being more popularized and normalized among youth, especially college students. It's being pushed as a great way to get through college without having any debt, and there's actually like billboards out there that talk about it. But it's not this, like I said, empowering, harmless relationship because of this imbalance of power. It makes the sugar babies feel like they owe the sugar daddies something because of the money that they're getting, and the sugar daddies a lot of times expect something because of the money that they're giving them, which puts them in this exploitative relationship. And a lot of sugar dating is being pushed on social media right now. Some of these popular sugar dating sites are Ashley Madison, SugarDaddy.com, and sometimes they partner with social media and will pop up on ads and kind of be pushed through that. Another kind of transactional site that's really popular right now is OnlyFans. OnlyFans is viewed a lot of times as just another form of social media, but really it's a gateway to the sex industry. There's been an uprising in child human trafficking survivors that started with OnlyFans. For those of you who don't know, OnlyFans, you like record videos or pictures of yourself and then post them. In most cases, these are going to be sexualized pictures and videos. And so the belief is, well, I'm the one who's controlling this, and so therefore it is okay or safe or fun. But we are finding that, of course, it's very linked to trafficking. Some missing kids are actually appearing in OnlyFans videos. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children found almost a dozen in 2019, and this tripled in 2020. And yes, there are age restrictions on OnlyFans, but they are easy to bypass. And so these teens can get on it to view the content, but they can also get on it to post the content. The IWF, which is the Internet Watch Foundation, found 68,000 cases of children pictures and videos online in 1 month alone. So it is not just adult stuff that's on there. And then these underage creators, most of the times are victims of prior sexual abuse. They have mental health issues. They struggle with suicidal thoughts. And so these are kids who are going through crises in their lives. So, like last time, we're going to have some journal prompts for you to share with your child or teen, and then hopefully they will share what they write with you afterwards. Sometimes it's just easier for them to write it down and then share it with you rather than have to talk face to face. So one is just, how does it make me feel when people that I don't know reach out to me on social media? We originally had the question, do people that I don't know reach out to me on social media? And then we're like, no. We need to normalize this. It happens. We know that it does. And so just how does it make me feel? Does it make me feel special? Does it make me feel scared? And be willing to hear what their answer is. And then what are my peers' viewpoints on websites like OnlyFans or SugarDaddy.com? Because sometimes it's easier to talk about our friends' viewpoints than our own.
Yep.
And then discussion questions. So as a parent, you would say, I've been learning about the risks of talking to people online that you don't know. And then you pick what age-appropriate information you want to share from this training. And then what are your thoughts about this? Have you seen this played out with your friends? What are you already doing to protect yourself in this regard? So give your kid a chance to tell you the ways that they are already making safe and good choices.
Yeah.
And then this one's geared more towards just teens. But I've been learning about sites like OnlyFans and sugar dating, and I know that they're becoming popular among young people as a quick way to make money. Remind your kid that you're not there to get them in trouble, but just, are you familiar with these kinds of sites, and what do your friends think about them? And then, what do you think about them? And then talk through the risks that you've learned, and what do you think about these risks? Do they seem accurate to you? So these are just some questions to kind of open up conversation, again, trying to make it relatable and easy to start some really hard conversations with your kids. So we have some sources for you. So feel free to browse through any of that to see where we got our information. And then, as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out.
Appreciate you. Thank you for taking the time, and we know that it's uncomfortable to have these conversations, but it's so worth it. So dive in and